Hello, everyone. Welcome to another MarketBeat Monday. We're so glad that you're joining us. If you're new to MarketBeat Monday, we are going to do a live look at some of the stocks that you put in the chat. There's already a ton coming in, so thank you everyone for putting in your suggestions. We've got more people joining us for MarketBeat Mondays live, which we love to see, but there's so many names that come in. Sometimes it's hard for me to weed through all of them. So if there's a stock you really want our guys to talk about, make sure you do a super chat. It's just a couple of bucks you can put in on super chat. It'll flag it for me to see right away, and I'll try to get to all of those for sure. It's not necessary, but there's just so many names to go through, so sorry if I don't get to all of them. Of course, we have the stars of MarketBeat Monday, which we're so glad we always have you guys on Monday. We have Chris Markoch and Thomas Hughes, our MarketBeat analysts who are writing in the market every day, always looking at these different stocks. We're going to start by going over some of the biggest market movers of the week, and then we'll dive into the names that you have for us in the chat. So guys, let's talk about the biggest one, and that's the big swing from Friday to Monday. A lot has changed in the market.
Yeah.
Right. That's just the impact of Trump and his big mouth, right?
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much he came out. He wasn't happy with whatever it was he and Xi Jinping were talking about. He wants to get those rare earth metals flowing. And so he said what he said on Friday. And, like I said in the preview for the weekend was like, he said it and it's here. But until it becomes a real reality, it's just more noise, in the wall of worry. And lo and behold, what happens? He walks it back a little bit and the market rebounded. And, clearly we have another buy the dip signal.
Yeah, I agree with Thomas. It's becoming something that I think investors should be getting used to, but apparently the reaction of the market on Friday is that they're not used to it yet, and that's that. I mean, he's just a very stream of consciousness president. He's going to comment on things, and he's going to make those comments public, and they're not necessarily reflective of the administration's policy, but they're reflective of his emotions at that moment.
All right.
Yet, like Thomas said, he walked it back a little bit. There's now saying that, there's probably going to be a meeting, although, there might not be a meeting, but there's probably going to be a meeting, and there might be tariffs, but there probably won't, probably won't be the tariffs. It's what it is.
It is what it is a good way to put it. The market is.
It's a transactional presidency. We've talked about. We've talked about that on the channel before. It's a transactional presidency, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's time to kind of get used to that.
That's a good way to put it. I'm going to pull up that S&P 500 chart so we can see just how much of a reaction that we saw in the market on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Really, to almost 2.5% dip on Friday. Now that big rebound back again. So yeah, words matter in this market. They happen quite often where we see this big move. Let's look at that heat map today and see where some of the biggest rebounds came. Consumer goods ending the day kind of in the worst spot. We didn't really see, those are still down. So not a good time for consumer goods and utilities. Medical also not that great. But where we saw the biggest rebound is technology. I think I want to start today by talking about that Broadcom bounce. Another, this stock already was up so much earlier this year, just a couple of months ago, and now we saw another huge rebound in Broadcom today.
10%. That deal with OpenAI, they're pledging $60 billion for what they say was a 10 gigabytes of gigawatts of AI capacity. So the stock jumped 10%, pretty big jump. But I will point out that similar deals with other companies have produced far larger bounces. So maybe there's something in that. Looking at the chart right now, the stock kind of struggling a little bit with resistance at the recent high. Still looks pretty bullish, but didn't get quite the bounce that maybe it could have gotten. So maybe have a little bit of caution with this. Wait for it to move to a new high before putting too much money into it.
Yeah, I think that's a good look at that one that had a really big bounce. I think another question we're getting from a few different people, and it was one topic that I wanted to cover too. We saw a lot of volatility in the market from Friday to Monday. We also saw a lot of volatility in the Bitcoin market. Can you guys talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah, Bitcoin dropped. I don't have the chart right in front of me, but I think it dropped maybe about 10%. Thomas, does that sound right to you?
So last week Bitcoin fell like almost 7%.
Yeah.
Certainly was kind of a sharp pullback, but when you look at the chart, Bitcoin is really just trading sideways over the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
It's to
like
me, it's
almost 4 months. I mean, it's just like just moving sideways,
right.
up some, down some, but really just sideways, waiting for the next big catalyst, which
Right.
may be coming up pretty soon because the market is starting to reapproach the 30-day moving average, which would be a trigger point, or actually the 150-day moving average, which would be a trigger point for buyers, possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the big question that everyone has is now a time to buy the dip in BTC? Could it be falling quite a bit further? Any insights for investors on that, including any of the stocks related to the Bitcoin market too?
It looks like right around 110,000 is pretty good support. That was right at the previous all-time highs, and so this consolidation for the last few months has been above that level, tested support at that level a few times. Looks like it's pretty strong. Right now, that moving average has moved up to that 110 level, so it's right below price action right now. So to me, it looks like this market's in an uptrend, has been consolidating, is getting ready to potentially start its next leg higher.
When you look at the Bitcoin chart over the last 6 months, Bridget, I mean, I think what you're starting to see is that Bitcoin it's not quite as volatile as it was. So I think if you're an investor that's expecting maybe those 50 to 60% drops in Bitcoin, I'm not sure if Bitcoin's going to do that, especially with the number of institutional investors that have gotten into it. It's becoming very much you know, it's one of those things that as it's going mainstream, it's also taking on some of that issue of maybe it's not going to be quite as volatile as it was. So I agree with Thomas. If you're getting a drop of getting it down around 110, if you look at the chart over the last 6 months, that's probably been a really good time to get in on it.
Yeah. Well, really interesting. I want to get
Yeah.
right into some of the names that our viewers have for us today because we've got so many different names coming in. We prepared to talk about a couple before we got started, but let's get to one of the first ones, ARBE. This is one to talk about, and then DVLT, Data Vault. And I know, Thomas, you just wrote an article on Data Vault, so let's get into that one first. And then, Chris, I'll have you talk about ARBE next. So
Okay.
tell me about Data Vault, Thomas.
Well, Data Vault has kind of got two stories going for it. One of them is the one where it doesn't make money and it's had a hard time with funding, and it's had some reverse stock splits, and the stock looks like it's really going nowhere. But then recently there has been some news where some partners have come in to kind of affirm its position with its technology, and what it's doing is using AI in conjunction with blockchains to not really manage, but to quantify and to tokenize data assets. So companies can then use these tokenized assets to sell their data, potentially to AI companies for training or for whatever reason. But it's to monetize data using blockchain and using AI. IBM is a partner, going to donate like $5 million worth of resources, time, and materials to help with the platform. Another big AI or blockchain-based trading platform is also a partner, injected some cash to help expand the platform. So there is this kind of shift from it being this company going nowhere to a company that's maybe going somewhere. The market has started to get some traction. Looks like a rebound and a reversal is in play. But at the same time, the short interest is very high, and there's not a lot of support from the analysts or from the institutions. So mostly what we have here is retail investors getting interested in a stock, um, preparing to battle it out with the short sellers. I imagine the short sellers will probably win unless we get a really good catalyzing news break, unless we see analysts and institutions start getting involved. When they start buying the stock, they will definitely help offset the short interest and help establish a really strong support base for that reversal to gain traction.
Yeah, really interesting analysis on that one, Thomas. Thank you for that. I think that the short interest play is interesting there. Like you said, it's people who are genuinely interested in the stock long term, but all those short term buyers are going to be making that kind of a hard buy right now. For you, is it a buy if you want to buy and hold long term, or is that one you would hold off on for now?
I mean, I think for this one, at the low price and the potential for its business, it's certainly a speculative play. You're not going to want to put a lot of money into it, but at $1.70 a share, you can get, a couple hundred shares for not very much money and sit on it, and maybe one day they'll explode.
Yeah, it's a pretty low cost of entry for that one. All right, let's move on to the next name because we've got a lot coming in again. Let's talk
Sure.
about ARBE. This is Arbe
Yep.
Robotics, I believe is the way to look at it. And then I think
Yeah.
next, Thomas, I'll have you look at Cisco. So you can pull up CSCO too. Chris, give us this one.
Yeah. So Arbe Robotics, it's a technology company. It's doing 4D imaging radar solutions for the automotive industry. So we're looking at this is an autonomous play. It's an Israeli company. Not much has been really happening with it. Stock has it's not a pre-revenue company, but it's generating very little revenue. It's not profitable. Analysts are fairly well. There's not a whole lot of analysts that cover the company. Number one, and the most recently, it got a sell rating from Weiss Ratings. To me, I think the company's got what it looks like. They've got a couple of contracts that might be in the works, and that might be stirring up some retail interest. That and the fact that again, it's an Israeli company, so perhaps with the news of the weekend coming, that they might think that things are getting a little bit quieter there, and Israel stocks are becoming a good investment again. Other than that, I don't. Stock's up a lot in the last month, but it's down a lot in the last 5 days. So this just seems like a stock that retail investors love right now, but it's really hard to get a read on it one way or the other.
All right, another interesting name. I love it when we get some names that we haven't really talked about
Absolutely.
much. We had a super chat. Thank you, Hytham, for putting that in. So, Chris, the next one I want you to look up is BTQ. We'll have you look at that one next.
Okay.
Thomas, let's get to Cisco. We had a couple of people who wanted to know about this. eHelp and Sharman, both thank you for being here again. We love having you here every Monday. Let's talk about this one, Thomas.
Right. Well, Cisco is kind of this humdrum blue chip, slow growth, legacy technology stock that does a really good job with cash flow and returning capital to its investors. But right now is also kind of getting a boost from AI. It's not one of those companies that's really critical to AI infrastructure like NVIDIA with chips or even AMD. But all of its systems are really critical for connecting all of these data centers together. So it's getting a really big boost to its revenue. That's been seen in some of the recent results and some of the guidances, which is pushing the stock higher over time. The last few months, it's kind of been stuck in a consolidation. But what I want to point out is that it's in this very significant place on the chart where it's broken above its recent long-term highs, and it's set up to continue moving higher and eventually retest the highs that were set way back in 1999. So this is a significant move for this company. We're looking at probably 67 up there too. That high is around 82. So that's like $15. We're looking at a double-digit upside right now. And because of the AI outlook, the blossoming outlook for data center spending, which is really going to funnel down to Cisco and all of its connectivity products, could push this market to new highs. The other stocks that we've seen over the past few years, starting in about 2018, that have moved up, these legacy tech companies that have moved up to retest their 1999 highs and then broken to new highs, have all exceeded those highs by like 100% or more. So for Cisco, not saying it's happening for sure, but it looks like it is getting ready to move up to retest that high. And with AI driving, it could easily move to new highs. And in that scenario, crossing that really significant pivot point, we could be looking at a very, very significant rally that unfolds over the next few years.
Yeah, we've talked about this one once before on the channel. I think it came up in one of your stock lists, Thomas. And I think this one's so interesting because it's a company that's pivoted so well. It's been around forever. This is not a new company in any way, but what they're doing is new, which is kind of leading to more of this earnings growth and more excitement about this old company. eHelp had a follow-up question here on Cisco acquiring Splunk. Have you heard anything about that acquisition?
That happened like a year or two, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And it really has been something that has underpinned Cisco's ability to sustain its growth. And it's one of the drivers for its forecast right now.
All right, very good. Well, let's get to that super chat request. Thank you for that one again. BTQ, what have you found about this one, Chris?
Yes, this is BTQ Technologies. I believe that's the one he's looking at, and this is a quantum play, and the stock's been up sharply in the last month, and that's been because they just got put into the Nasdaq index. So that's something that generally, when that happens, that's bullish for the stock, and their stock is certainly no exception. From what I can see, it's up about 50% in the last 52% in the last month. So it's up strongly. So the thing here is the company is they don't have a lot of revenue. They're taking sort of an all of the above approach in quantum. They're going after hardware, they're going after software, they're going after encryption. So they're not really limiting themselves to one area, but they're not also focusing on one area. And that can be hit or miss depending on your investment perspective. Right now, the company looks like they've got enough cash, at least for a little while, and that's always a risk when you're looking at small companies like this. Biggest risk here is the fact that it's in this quantum sector that's still sort of in the formation area. Do you chase it when it's up 50%? That's the question. It looks like it's pulled back a little bit in the last 24 hours, but it doesn't have a lot of analyst coverage. So really right now investors are kind of flying a little bit blind here. Again, it looks like it's got enough cash, so it's not burning cash too much. And it's just hard to say right now. The stock's made such a big move, you would think it's going to pull back a little bit. But again, if you like the stock, it's one of those that, okay, this might be the right, you might wait for a little bit of a pullback and then get in, because it will be inexpensive from that standpoint.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, this one we didn't have the best graphics or data on it too. I think it's hard to talk about some of these companies when they're so new. There's not even a lot out there on it yet. So thank you for going over that one. Thanks for bringing that one to the table too. We like to see it. Let's get to a couple of other names here. One we talked about before, GitLab, GTLB. Let's talk about that one. And I think because we brought it up, we should just do a quick look at the quantum stocks. I know I look at all the comments on all of the videos we post during the week, and people have been asking about quantum stocks quite a bit here. Yeah. So let's do a quick little look at what those are doing. I think when we looked before, they were doing well, right?
The quantum stocks?
Yes.
Yeah.
They've been doing pretty all right. They've been rocketing pretty.
Yeah, they did the dip and rip. They dipped on Friday and they're up again today, and that's
yeah. Did Rigetti rise 25% today? Yeah, I think that this right now in the quantum stocks is just a lot of FOMO. I mean, there's certainly an investment to be done here, and they're gonna, revolutionize computing when they're really feasible. But I still haven't heard any major breakthroughs to change the outlook. And right now, we just have people flooding into the market for no other reason than because it's quantum computing. I think some people are going to get burned pretty hard on this one.
That's a hot take for sure. Let me know in the chat. What do you guys think? Are you buying into the momentum on some of the quantum stocks? Or are you staying away right now? Maybe are you taking profits? That's a question, Tom or Chris, too. Is now a time, if you've been in on any of these quantum stocks, should you be taking some profits right now, ready for some kind of pullback to come in the future?
Yes.
That's an easy answer. Seems
right. I think the thing that most investors have to look at with this sector is it's a real sector and it's got a real future, but that future is not today, and the stocks are priced as if that future is now. And so if you're going to trade in the sector, it was kind of like I said about one of the stocks we talked about last week. If you're going to be trading in it, you need to be playing the game. And the game is, when you get your profits, take the profits and get out, or get out to the point where you've taken your initial investment out and you're just playing with the house's money. Because otherwise, like Thomas said, if you're trying to get every last cent you can, there could be a lot of people getting hurt here.
Really good point. All right, well, that's a good look at the quantum stocks. And again, I say them as a group because they really all kind of trade as a group. When D-Wave is up, Rigetti is also up, they're all just kind of up together. So whether you're in even IonQ, whichever one you might be in, taking profits is some good advice from these guys today. It's a good time to do that. And if you wait for that pullback, if you do want to get in for that next rally that they might have. Let's get to GitLab. This is one, I think, Thomas, maybe we've talked about this one before. It looks like it's had a rough month.
Yeah, it's just been struggling for the last couple of quarters. GitLab is one of those stocks that I thought was going to really see a big boom from AI because of its DevSecOps platform. It's where developers are going to go to develop applications, and the revenue and the earnings are really strong. It's been growing at a high double-digit pace and outperforming and producing cash flow. But there's just something in the outlook that's been holding the market back. And the most recent thing I saw in the analyst news stream is some concerns that AI might actually hurt GitLab. So we had this company whose business is embedding AI into its tools to help you do your work. But in the end, these tools are going to be embedded in other services, across the cloud, across the internet. There's going to be competitors emerging with tools, and it just seems that it's possible for GitLab to become obsolete really fast. So I think that right now, a lot of analysts and potentially some other important market players, institutions specifically, will just be sitting on the sideline waiting to see what happens. And when that happens, the stock price usually just moves sideways, if not moving lower.
A good look at that company. Again, it's one that so many people have been excited about, but it'll be interesting to see if it ever really takes off. We have so many different names coming in here. It's hard to pick. So again, if you really want to stand out, send me a super chat really quick. I'm just going to kind of pick some different names at random. I promise it's never personal. I wish I could get to every single one of the stocks you want us to talk about. We will go until about 4:45, so we'll go for another 20 minutes or so. So we'll cover as many as we can in this next little bit we have. The next two I have for us to talk about, I want to talk about BMNR. We had a couple of people who wanted to hear about that. And then CRML. There's a couple of people who wanted to hear about that. If I hear more than one person interested, I usually like to go with those two. I have the chart pulled up for BMNR. This is one of those BitMine companies, I believe. So let's talk about that one quick.
Right. Well, the name is BitMine, and I think a lot of people would immediately think of, oh, it's a Bitcoin mining company. But the interesting story here, Bridget, is that the company, they specialize in immersion cooling solutions. So immersion cooling is a technology that's needed to manage the HPCs, the high performance computing systems that are used in data centers. Now, yes, they're also used in Bitcoin mining and crypto mining and all that. But right now, it's the primary solution that's being used to cool the output that's coming out from these data centers. That seems to be where the interest in this stock is coming from right now. It's not heavily covered by analysts. So again, investors have to take that as it comes. It doesn't appear to be profitable yet, but I'm not seeing a lot in terms of their earnings right now. So, that's the idea. It's latching onto that idea that we're gonna need a lot more of these types of solutions going forward.
Yeah, I think this one is interesting because there's just not a ton of data out there either. But it's not a tiny stock either. It doesn't look like it's been out for too long, but it's already got a decent value out there.
It's been in the market for about 5 years. It looks like it's been trading for about 5 years. yeah, I'm trying to look around. I'm just not getting any solid like earnings data and all that. But again, like I said, it's not covered by very many analysts, but it is the right it's a right sector if you're looking for how to play this AI data center boom, especially with AI infrastructure.
Okay, very good. Well, guys, let's go to that next list I had for you. Thomas, it was CRML, right?
I'm sorry. CRML. I was listening to what Chris was saying and I wasn't even paying attention. Give me a sec. CRML.
Yes, this one, it looks like critical metals, and I think this is an interesting area to look at. So I'm glad that somebody brought this one up, right? A few people did, so thank you for that. Looks like this one has gone a really good month, up 272% in the last month. What an interesting
So
stock chart.
lithium and rare earth elements in Austria, southern Greenland. Yeah, so it's looking for rare earth metals. So that's the story there. Just all the hoopla around that, the price with that, Trump administration negotiating with China about that. So I think that's the story here. Low short interest, so it's real buyers. I don't see. Yeah, I don't see anything in the earnings. Let's see here. Critical metals. Make money. Right. So this is a pre-revenue development company looking for rare earth metals. So I mean, it could be a gold mine, and it could be a money pit.
That's a good way to look at it. Could be either. It's hard to know. I
Well,
think
right.
that
Yeah, it's like it's a good market, but they've got to find the metals to mine, and they've got to get permission to mine them, and then they've got to do it and pay for it and make a profit. So there's quite a bit of risk in this one. So
and
I wouldn't
even with
rush
the favorable
right into it.
right, and even with the favorable administration, that's a process that takes some time.
Yeah, I do think that these stocks are interesting though because they've been in the headlines a lot. A lot of people are looking at these stocks. And so I think that any of these mining stocks are good ones to look at. Could be interesting stories, but they also could be more along the lines of quantum computing, right? We're working towards something, but are we actually there yet? Is there any kind of profit or breakthrough yet? Not for sure. So I think that's an interesting conversation for those. Good. All right. Well, let's get to some other names. Gosh, there are so many coming in. Let's go with one that's familiar and a couple of different people are asking about SMCI. We haven't looked at this one in a while. Have you guys seen any moves or covered this one recently?
Oh, it's been a little while. Microcomputers.
It looks like
still struggling.
Yeah.
Looks like it's still struggling to gain traction. That bottom is still in play. SMCI.
Yeah, it's fine. It's like hitting that resistance point too, and it's just not quite being able to get past that around that $60 level. That's
there's quite a bit of overhang from the sell-off that happened in 2024. So it could take some time for the market to work through it. We've got 3 tests of resistance.
Yeah,
we're above all the moving averages. Those look pretty solid. So we've got a support base is growing. It just hasn't broken out.
Yeah.
OpenAI deals. Well, right. So in the news flow, chatter looks like all these deals with OpenAI, all these new data center deals really are supportive of super microcomputer as well, because it just means servers and rack systems that they're going to build. What do the analysts say about this company now? How's that changed?
They're kind of neutral towards it, neutral to maybe even a little. Well, a couple of them have upgraded it to a hold, but they're kind of neutral on it.
45. Right. It looks like sentiment bottomed and rebounded a little bit, but it's not. They haven't gotten in gear to really catalyze the market to want to move higher yet.
Yeah, interesting. Do you see any potential catalysts for SMCI? Again, there's been so many people waiting to see this stock really take off, and it hasn't seen the kind of big jumps that we've seen in a lot of other tech stocks. Is there something that's still holding this one back?
I think upcoming earnings could do it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like we've been talking about, this huge growing pipeline of AI data center deals is great for AMD, it's great for NVIDIA, great for OpenAI, but it also means business for all these other companies, which includes Cisco and includes Supermicro computers. And eventually that money is going to start showing up in the revenue, and that'll drive the stock. I'm looking right now at the institutional at the institutional ownership, and the institutions are buying this stock pretty heavily. It's like 10 to 1, buyers to sellers. That's pretty strong support base. So, we get a good catalyst, and the stock could break out to new highs.
Yeah, I mean, the earnings are expected to be, right now, their analysts are forecasting earnings growth about 19%, but the stock's up about 79% for the year. So there's probably some feeling that maybe the stock's a little ahead of itself, but that could change. They report earnings, I think it's early November, and if the earnings expectations goes up, then that's where that could be that catalyst.
Right.
Good. I'll get another two.
Well, sorry, 100% of the revisions for earnings and revenue have been lowered in the last 90 days, in the last quarter.
Right.
So that's a pretty low bar for the company to beat. The outperformance could be substantial. That could be a catalyst.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting to look at for these ones for sure. I hadn't pulled that up yet. All right, well, let's take a look at a couple of other names. I've got two other names for you guys to look at. They're names we've heard before, but are interesting to look at. MSTR, kind of that same vein, and then NVTS, I believe. Let me just double check. I'm looking back for where I saw that. Yeah, Navitas.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've covered both.
I
think we have.
Finance, real estate development. Is this North Star Holdings you're talking about?
Navitas Semiconductor, NVTS.
What was the other one?
MSTR.
Oh, MSTR. I got you.
Yes, and we've talked about that before. I think that's also the same vein. Who wants to take what?
I can take I know Thomas has talked about MSTR before, but
go ahead and take that one, Chris. Take MSTR, and then Thomas, if you want to look up Navitas, we'll do that. And just because I've got it up, I've got MSTR up right now.
Okay, let me get that one up here.
So it looks like MicroStrategy is down almost 30% in 3 months. So definitely struggling along here a little bit. It still has, analysts are very bullish on MSTR. I think that's an interesting thing to look at. So thanks for whoever brought that up. But it looks like analysts still have a consensus price target of about 509, which is a 61% upside. But looking at the chart here, it definitely hasn't realized that yet. So is this something that could be a hidden opportunity for investors, or is there a reason why it's struggling along a little bit?
Well, analysts are very bullish on it. I mean, analysts are saying that there could be, a substantial upside, or at least one analyst is very, there's a handful of analysts that are very bullish on it. I think what this is going to come down to for some investors is, what do they feel about the company's business model, which, is the stock now becoming a proxy for Bitcoin in and of itself? And if it is, then that's going to make the stock maybe a lot less attractive than it was. It was one of those stocks that had a major run up earlier this year and was running up very hot with the price of Bitcoin, but tough to say here, really. It's been downgraded some. It's been, so some lower targets.
Thomas, anything from memory that you want to add to the MSTR conversation?
Yeah, this is just one that's hard to know why you want to buy it, because if you're banking on Bitcoin going higher, you can just buy Bitcoin. This company is, trading its value for for Bitcoins, so it's like you buy some stock and the company will build its Bitcoins, but the shares you buy are going to be eroded over time as it continues to sell more shares and lean into debt to buy more Bitcoin, so eventually maybe you'll be able to recoup your investment and make some money, but it's real questionable. And I think that's being seen in the price action because it's incredibly volatile. Some people believe in it, some people don't. Eventually we'll figure out which one of them is right. In the meantime, I'm not going to own it.
I think a lot of it depends on how you feel about Michael Saylor. Yeah, I think they're betting on the person more than they are the stock.
Very interesting look at that one. Thank you guys for that. All right, let's move on to Navitas Semiconductor. This is one we've talked about before. This is a much more positive chart. Thomas, what do you have to say about this one?
Well, so I think what we have here is this semiconductor company seemingly well positioned because of its domestic footprint, the outlook for domestication of semiconductor, production. Also in a transition, trying to refocus or sharpen its focus on the AI data center business, which obviously is really surging. So we have this turnaround in play. We have some traction being shown in the business. Certainly some interest from the market because we have a huge spike in volume that occurred May and June. And now we have OpenAI just really leaning hard into these new data center deals, which just spells good news or means good news for all these ancillary businesses, of which Navitas is one, because it's making these, the gallium and the silicon carbide semiconductor products, which are really well suited to high power situations, especially in these big AI data centers where they're using such immense workloads and immense power loads. So that's it. But ultimately also there is some risk because this company is still in contraction. It hasn't reverted to growth yet. So we really need to see some results, see it start to show up in the results, or else it's going to be risk of a pretty sharp pullback, I think.
Yeah, I've got the analyst targets pulled up here too, and I think that that's a little bit of a concern. Just seeing it's listed as a hold.
There's like 29% short interest on the stock, and it's gone up in the last month. So you can see when you look at the stock chart, and then that it's up 61% in the last month, and then you see the fact that there's a lot of short interest right now. That there's probably there's going to be probably a lot of short pressure on the stock if it does, now it's got earnings coming up on November 3rd, and that could surprise to the upside. But I've noticed here that in the last several quarters at least, revenue's been down year over year, and the company's still not profitable. So again, I think the market's right, and I agree with Thomas. This is the company's occupying a niche that's very much needed in terms of how to allow these data centers to run more efficiently. But that's maybe the stock might be ahead of itself right now.
All right, very interesting. I've got a couple more names for you guys. I'm going to run through, give you some time to look those up. This is one we've talked about before, Chris. Hoth Therapeutics, HOTH. Have you looked that one up? And then I can't remember which one I was going to have you do, Thomas. Let's see. We've got a couple other interesting ones here. We just did NVTS, so I hope that you guys saw that one. Mara, we've had a couple of people asking about Mara, so let's look up Mara, and then we'll get to a few other names yet here too. I did want to share, we had somebody asking about natural gas a few times. Erkan, you're looking about natural gas stocks. Great timing. We have a video coming out on Wednesday about a couple of different really interesting natural gas names. In fact, it's a video about 3 energy stocks that are all trading under $20 right now, where there's a lot of value still to be had. I think it was an interesting conversation about the energy sector, how it's some of the lowest price stocks out in the market right now if you're looking for some value. So that's coming out on Wednesday. Make sure to check back on the channel then. And if you're interested in all of these AI names too, I also want to share, we are working with AI and MarketBeat all the time. So if you haven't checked out our website yet, we have a bunch of new tools. And for our premium subscribers, we have even more AI tools available. It's all about investing smarter with the power of AI. And MarketBeat has a 30-day free trial that you can do right now on our website just to try it out and see if it's a new investment tool that you really want to use for your investing journey, looking up and finding more of these unique names like we talk about on MarketBeat Mondays too. So scan the QR code, click the link, we'll have it right in the comments or in the description if you want to take a look at that and try for free for 30 days just to see if this is the kind of AI tool that you want to use for investing. And if you haven't been to MarketBeat yet, that's where these guys get all of this information from. It's totally free. You can just go check it out right now. So I hope you go there and join us there. All right, guys, let's get to these other two names that you have for us. Chris, let's start with Hoth Therapeutics.
Yeah. So right now, the stock's been this is a biotechnology company. So let's start with that. It's had a really strong year to date. It's up about 104%. One of the reasons for that, Bridget, is because the company is not yet profitable. They're pre-revenue. Their first drug candidate, I'm trying to think of the name here, my HT001 or something, it's advancing through the clinical trial process, and so far so good on that. It's been doing very well in that regard. Right now, what seems to be getting investors excited is the fact that they've got a partnership with NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is going to be providing them with the infrastructure via the GPUs to help in their sort of the next gen researching for their oncology drugs. So one of the exciting applications for AI is the fact that it's going to be able to accelerate the drug development process without sacrificing quality. It's going to be able to help these drug companies sift through the possibilities faster and get drugs into the pipeline faster that have a higher probability of getting through the FDA's process. And I think that's what's got investors interested. Now, it's up 104% for the year. Short interest has gone up 450% in the last month. So there's probably this is probably one of those that there's going to be some downward pressure on it. Biotech is always a tricky industry. The company is going to be probably at least a year or more away from actually getting a drug across the finish line. Investors have to be mindful of that. If you've got a long timeline and you're willing to take the ride with it, this might be a stock to look at, especially if it pulls back a little bit, because it does have it's the drug that's trying to get through the clinical trials is an oncology drug, and I believe it's skin cancer, but it's also got some other drugs that it's trying to get through into the clinical trial stage. So again, these are always moonshots, but that's not to say they can't work, but you're going to have to be willing to be patient and have a long-term horizon on it.
Yeah, I really like this one. We talked about it again before, but some indicators. It's trading at the lower end of that 52-week range. I also think that looking at the analyst forecast, there's a lot of upside potential, super low entry point. So again, if you are riding this for a little bit, worth a little bit of a risk out there. It's not too much of a risk, and there's a lot of potential growth here. So a good name. Right. Thanks for bringing that one up in the chat today and for talking about it again. All right, Chris or Thomas, let's get on to your stock.
Right. So Mara Holdings, this is a Bitcoin miner. What I see is that it's been growing its core business and it is able to make some money, but the stock just really hasn't been able to gain traction. I think there's been a fair amount of dilution over the last year or two. But the real story here is the potential for it to become an AI powerhouse. So this is another company that specialized in building these HPC data centers with liquid cooling, really well suited to AI. Hasn't yet announced any kind of AI deals or AI partnerships that would boost the stock price, but it could come at any time. There are numerous companies that this is comparable to that are doing very well with using or selling GPU or data center as a service for these high power computing scenarios. So it could happen at any day. This is a stock that, if you want to put some money in for one of those, shoot for the moon payoffs, this is one that could do it, but certainly you want to be careful with it. You don't want to just, go in, full Monty right from the beginning, right, because it might not happen. It's just, but it's one that looks like it could happen.
Yeah, this is an interesting name. It's, again, come up a few different times on MarketBeat Monday, and so I like to see repeat ones. That means there's more people interested in it, which is like what we like to see. All right, just a couple more names. These will be the last two that we do today. It's one that we wanted to talk about, so I'm glad it came up in the chat. BigBear.ai, because there's been some moves on this, and Thomas has a really unique view on that. So we are going to look at that one. The other one, the last one I wanted to look at today, I got to remember, I had it because I thought it was interesting. I'd seen it a few different times on here. LAC, I'm not sure what this is. I just had seen it pop up a few different times. So we're going to have Chris look at that one. Thomas, why don't you...
Which was that again, Bridget? LAC?
LAC. A few different people
Lithium
asked about
Americas,
that one. So we'll have you guys look at that. But Thomas, why don't you start with BigBear.ai?
All right. So with Big Bear, there's some chatter has started to emerge to where its platform and business could potentially be well suited to aid the defense shipbuilding industry from losing so much money. And if that was possible, then it could get some contracts. It could gain some traction, see its stock price moving higher. What we're seeing today is that the stock price did advance by 22%, pretty good amount. But I would say this is short covering. The short interest was above 20%. So certainly short covering is involved here. We have not set a new high. We're still below the high end of the trading range. We're approaching the critical resistance point right now. It's near about 970, 975. If we can get above that, this rally may continue higher, but I would be real leery until we see some new highs start forming. I don't think the analysts have gotten on board with this new story yet. It's just really some whispers that I've kind of seen some hints here and there. Analyst forecasts, really, no change here. It's a hold. They're predicting 30% downside at the consensus. A sell rating has popped up, so there certainly is some caution is entering. Some caution is entering the outlook. So Big Bear is one of those stocks, should be doing better than it is. It's really not. There is some potential for it to do better. No evidence of that yet. When that happens, we could see a massive short squeeze. Until then, what I think is happening is just, there is some short covering, and we should expect to see the shorts reposition at the $9.75, $10 level, cap gains, and put this market back into another sell-off.
Yeah, I like your analysis on BigBear.ai because we've had some retail viewers out there who've been really excited about this stock. We had another MarketBeat analyst who was calling Big Bear the next Palantir. And so there's definitely some comparisons out there about could Big Bear do what Palantir did, which is kind of defy all expectations. And people, retail investors especially, want to get in if this could be that next stock. Do you see any comparisons between Palantir and Big Bear, or are they still just very different stories?
I do see comparisons, but like we've been saying, Palantir is getting the business and Big Bear isn't. So right now, all the evidence is saying that Palantir is the choice and Big Bear isn't. Palantir is getting the business. It's getting the attention from analysts. It's getting the attention from the institutions. It's getting attention from Congress. Big Bear is getting none of these things. So when it comes down to investability, as similar as they may be, Palantir is the one to buy and Big Bear is the one to watch and see what happens. And maybe it'll be a buy, but right now I don't think it is.
All right, very good. Well, the last one is Chris. Which one are you looking at?
LAC, Lithium Americas. Okay, so we started off tonight and we were talking about the transactional presidency, and that's what this one comes down to. So this is a lithium miner. It's a company that's in the like a lot of the companies we're talking about. It's pre-revenue. It's not profitable, but the stock's up about 180% in the last month, and the reason for that is because the Department of Energy has formed a partnership with Lithium Americas, and they're not just providing cash for the company so that they can get their Thacker Pass project finished. It's about 70% complete right now. It's their initial mine. They've got to get that complete before they can start operations. But with this infusion of money from the Department of Energy, that's almost a sure thing now. That's the project will be able to get finished. The intriguing part of it is that the U.S. government now is going to get a 5% equity stake in the company and a 5% economic interest in the project through warrants that have an exercise price. So it's not just a lender borrower, it's actually a strategic alignment. You can understand why the government's doing this because, again, this is they're looking at lithium as being strategically important for the United States, not just as an economic benefit, but also as a matter of national security. So that's why the stock's going up. Having said that, there is some relatively high short interest on the stock. It's just above 10%, it's 11.5. It's been going up. So it's going to have some short sellers after it, especially with it going up 194% in the last month. But I think this is one where investors could very definitely make a limit order their friend and decide what price they want to buy it at. And maybe if the stock pulls back to that level, let the market, let the order execute at that point. I think the story is bullish for this. I think the stock right now maybe is running a little hot.
Really good assessment on this. I think there's a number of names out there in this field that we're going to continue to see some big jumps like this. There's a few different names that have come in the chat. Sorry, we can't cover them all, but kind of in this sector. Last final comments from you two, just talking about what are your thoughts on some of these different mining sectors? Do you think that this whole segment is going to see a lot of volatility or just a lot of growth because of that investment you just talked about, Chris?
Boy, so I think it's two separate questions. I think when you're talking about some of these companies like Lithium Americas or some of the rare earth ones, I think that's a separate story, and that's, I think, going to be a little bit more speculative. But certainly when you get a company that's got the government backing to it, no matter how you feel about that from a comfort level, it's bullish for the companies in terms of securities. If we're talking about gold and silver mining, I think that's a totally different story. And I think the story is, I think you want to stay best in class there, because I think you want to go with the miners that are actually getting stuff out of the ground now, because I think those are the ones to watch going forward.
Very good. Well, any final thoughts of things you're watching this week, guys, as we close out the show?
Earnings season starts this week.
Yeah. Banks, I think the big banks start tomorrow. And to me, Bridget, that's the interesting story right now, because with the government shutdown, there's a lack of economic data. And so the earnings reports, especially when you start hearing from the banks and you start hearing from CEOs like Jamie Dimon, that's going to be sort of a proxy for the economic reports. That's what makes it interesting to me. Government shutdown's not going to, they've already said, I think it's not going to end this week. So we're going to next week already. No CPI this week. I don't know. Do we get the CPI?
They said CPI is coming out.
That's right. You're right. Thank you for bringing that up.
They're bringing people into work to do that, right? Because we have to have the CPI. I mean, geez.
Yeah. So that's at least one data point we'll get. And like I said, I think you'll get the banks kind of acting as a proxy for the state of the consumer, which will be something,
Yeah.
Right. I mean, as far as like the data and outlook for the market goes, guidance is just as good as the economic data. If the CEOs are saying, trends are improving or they're worsening, or we're optimistic or we're cautious, that'll have a lot of impact on the market.
Yep.
Very good. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I kept you a little bit longer today, like I always do. So thank you for sticking with us. And thank you all for watching. I love having you all in the chat. It's great to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. Stick with us the rest of this week. We're going to have a new video out every day on some really interesting topics. Again, a few of them were asked about in the chat. So stay tuned to the channel around market close every day, or a few minutes after. We will have a new video for you. Thanks for watching, everyone. And as always, happy investing.